The following is a JourneyWise Network production.
Friends, welcome to the JourneyWise podcast. We are so excited to have with us a dear friend and author, Laurie Beth Jones, who really sort of changed my life when I read her first book, Jesus CEO, now 30 years ago, and thoroughly loved this way that she integrates the conversation about the life of Jesus with everyday life. And at that point, it was about leadership and it was about organization and time management. Laurie Beth has gone on to write several other books that I just love. One is called Jesus in Blue Jeans. She wrote The Path, and then, of course, the 4 elements of Christian leadership that we are using here at the JourneyWise Network. So Ronnie, it is my privilege to introduce you to my friend, and who could be your friend too, but my friend, Laurie Beth Jones. Laurie Beth, it's so great to have you with us.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear your voice and to meet a new friend who helped raise you up,
Yep.
keep you healthy, keep you alive, the basics.
I only take partial credit for what he's become. Okay, I'll let Pokey and God be the other two. So
He has played
That's a pretty strong trinity right there.
He is definitely part of the Trinity of keeping me alive. I will say that. Laurie Beth, our program, this is our second season, and our first season really sort of focused on mine and Ronnie's relationship. We've got 40 years of being friends, and this is the first time we've worked at the same project together. But everything that I would do growing up and becoming a professional, I would check basically either him or his example. And so there's something powerful about having a good mentor that can help you. But it wasn't always an easy conversation or an easy relationship. I went through some difficult things, and in one of our episodes, we'll talk about kind of almost a 10-year absence that we had in our friendship and about that. But what I learned through following this relationship and Ronnie's example really is about putting the right things first. And I wanted to talk to you today because we have talked about your book, The Path, with many people. And in fact, Ronnie, along with his son James, who's a psychologist, is doing a program called The Anxiety Algorithm. And I wanted Ronnie to share with you the story he got back from a woman who was in that class that connected back to you. So Ronnie, tell that story.
So I had not mentioned at all about us doing this today. And in our class, we were studying Jeremiah 29, where God talks about the plans he has for us. And so my opening question was, what's something that somebody in here is looking forward to? And a couple of people commented. Then this one lady said, well, I'm looking forward to starting a new job tomorrow as a hospice nurse. I said, wow, what a calling, how significant that is in families' lives. She said, and it's because of your class. And she said, in fact, it's because of your son recommending the book, The Path. She said, when I read that, I realized I was in the wrong job and that God had called me to something much greater. And she said, so I moved into what I really think my calling is, and that is being a hospice nurse. So how cool is that? Yeah.
That's powerful.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
Laurie Beth, can you tell us a little bit about what caused you to write The Path? Where did that come from, and what was the development of that like?
Well, I had written Jesus CEO and was on a national tour promoting the book. And one of the 3 strengths that Jesus had was he was able to state his mission in a single sentence. I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. And when I looked through the gospel at every major decision that he made, in the stories, everything related back to ultimately he voted on the side of abundant life, whether it was the woman caught in adultery who was going to be stoned to death, or whether it was turning water into wine at a wedding. Even his own death, he realized this will lead to abundant life. And so the clarity there was so profound. And I began working with CEOs and asking them what was their mission in a single sentence. and they couldn't state it. And Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits, he was just a wonderful plower of the field and getting people to think intentionally about things. And he had a mission process, but it took 7 weeks and pages upon pages. And I thought, it's got to be simple. It's got to be something that can be said in a single sentence. So that's when I wrote my own mission statement, which is to recognize, promote, and inspire divine connection. And I began talking about that with people and saying, well, this is my mission statement. And people would say, oh, can we have it? Can we have it? And I would say, well, yeah, but it'd be better, if it made it yours. But it resonated with so many people. I diagrammed it, and it was 3 verbs and a core value. And I later added a tribe, which was in myself and others. And I thought, well, if we gave people a choice, they could pick 3 verbs that excited them, because the mission's always about action. And then they could pick the core value, but it would only have to be 1. And that's where it got really challenging for people. And then the tribe could be as broad as mine, which is in myself and others, or as specific as Jesus really was for the lost sheep of Israel. But he did work with anybody who came along that needed abundant life. So that's how it started. And then we wrote it down, and that turned into a book, and people wanted seminars. And I said, why do you want to come hear me talk about this? Just read the book. Oh, no. So you know how that goes. So I told my associate at the time, who was really spearheading this, and I said, all right, we'll do it in San Diego. But if nobody comes, it's on you. So that's my leadership style. I'm real proud of it.
I actually like that.
Transference, yes.
Delegation at its 10th degree.
Exactly. Well, we had 35 people from all over the country show up, and it just took off. And there's really something about it. And I know Dr. Kent, Ronnie, you feel that, and I know Shane, in your tremendous work as a pastor, there's nothing like being in front of people and helping them be born again.
Yes,
absolutely.
And it did not occur to me to either, really, because of the traditions that I came from, Laurie Beth, that when I took the path and actually did the certification, that was one of the things that occurred to me, is that the whole nature of being born again is not just a spiritual event, that
Right.
actually God seeks to give us a new beginning in just about every element of life. And what a powerful thing that is for some people, especially those who definitely need a new beginning in this life, long
Yes.
before they're going to reach the next life. And I love the fact that the path kind of helps you do that. Now, you developed that into this conversation about the 4 elements, and that's really become a big deal for us. How did that transition happen from the path to the 4 elements, where people find out whether they're earth or wind or fire or water?
Well, everything for me, I always look back to Jesus, and as the ultimate leader, the powerful leader. And I thought, he always described himself in word pictures. He didn't say, I am descended from the ultimate order of Melchizedek and blah, 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 all these pedigrees. It was like, I am the gate. I am the shepherd. I am
The bread.
And water.
Yeah.
the bread. Yeah, all of those things that were everyday things. And then I was reading Genesis 1 and looked at it, and in the beginning was the earth, and the earth was without form and void. And the spirit of the presence of God hovered over the earth, and God spoke and said, light be, and light was. And I looked at it and I thought, earth, water, wind, and fire.
Yes.
Wow.
That's every element. He created everything out of those 4 elements. And I thought, okay, so let's get going with this. So I would ask people, okay, which do you think? Are you more like the wind? And I did this verbally until we digitized it. And, for several years, are you more flighty? But always think about the element itself.
Well, so tell me about those conversations, because I thought we have all the material, and they still were very interesting conversations when we started with our team. You're doing it, and you don't even have the curriculum together, and you're asking people, are you like wind or water? What were some of your responses?
Right. Well, it was just really fun because I had, thought about each element and what some of the styles were. And fire is hot, intense. So I would give instructions like that.
Okay.
It can burn things down or it can light the way. But just a few words. And then the wind is always in motion. You can't predict it. It's invisible. It changes on a dime. And then water always seeks the lowest place and it always wants to be calm. It only gets stirred up when other elements are acting upon it.
Oh, that's great.
And and then what am I missing?
Earth.
Earth. My lowest. No wonder.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
Mine, my lowest too.
Oh yeah, that one. Earth, steady, predictable, can grow anything, doesn't show its emotions, can hold on to things for a long time. And so I'd ask people which one you like. And what was fun, and maybe you experienced this, is people will call out and say, "Oh, Jimmy, you're a wind."
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We all knew what each other were long before we knew what we were.
Exactly. They've been living with it, right?
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes. And Laurie Beth, it created some of the most amazing conversations among our team. And all of our team is connected primarily through me. I know everybody pretty well, but they didn't know each other. But it was it was interesting how quickly someone who had never known much about the other could say, just in the last 2 days of watching you, you're definitely wind or you're definitely fire. Ronnie, what's your element?
I'm wind fire.
So how would you
Wait,
diagnos him, then, Laurie Beth?
Wait a minute. That was a real strong Is that you may have to explain that
Well, that's my element too. So I mean, that's
the
Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
That's right. I knew that he was going to have something special come out of this.
Thank you so much, Laurie Beth. Now I'll approach Shane with a whole different attitude.
So Laurie Beth,
right.
Laurie Beth, so let's talk about this for a minute. As a wind fire, tell me, what are your strengths and challenges?
Well, definitely earth is my lowest element, and then water is my second. So the wind fire, if you look at it as pacing, and because you teach this, but just for the sake of our audience here, wind and fire always move fast, right? The earth and water move slowly. So there's a pacing there. So when you get a wind fire personality, we're great with ideas and we love taking action and we want to see results, right? So there's we're focused flames in motion.
Oh, that's great.
Right, Ronnie?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the beautiful part of it.
Oh, great.
The challenge, then, please tell me some
Challenge,
challenges,
yes. Okay,
Laurie
yeah,
Beth, please.
Don't give him too much ammunition, okay?
As many as you would like to share,
And
Laurie
especially
Beth.
my wife, my wife will listen to this, so I don't want her to have to.
That's right. Well, the challenges are the opposite elements, right? So the wind sees everything as being possible, and the earth is thinking not until next season, or not for the next 5 years, or not until this happens. The earth thinks sequentially, and the earth's job is to guard the resources, and the wind's job is to scatter them.
Wow. Okay.
So you get the dynamic of, the wind fire not always thinking through what the end result might be. And the example I give is the wind and fire can burn down a forest in hours.
Wow.
So could I ask you a question?
Yes.
My wife is a pretty strong earth. Have you looked at much on how God puts marriages together? Because, for the first few years of our marriage, my wind, fire, and her earth just didn't get along too well. Even though I was attracted to her strengths, in particular her organizational strengths and how calm she was and how she didn't let things affect us. And, I mean, we really have not gotten into major arguments in our 45 years of marriage, and it's not because of me primarily. It's because of her. Have you ever looked at how marriages go together with the elements?
Well, that's not my area of expertise, certainly, but there are marriage and family counselors who really go deeply into this. And in fact, I did this one seminar and I was working with a group of doctors actually, and got onto the elevator, and the doctor just looked at me. He said, "You just saved my marriage."
Wow.
Because they had a similar dynamic. And the thing is, once you really need to realize the strengths of your partner's elemental makeup. And it's not because they're trying to annoy you, and it's not because they're trying to overpower you. This is their core, the way they're wired. So if you can understand that, it's one thing, and the winds and fires particularly love to have everybody know their elements. Like I had one fire say, "Well, I'm a fire. I don't need to know what you all are."
Laurie Beth, I scored double fire. Did you know that? Yes.
I did not.
Yeah, he's hot.
Shane, go for it.
Yes, you betcha. And you're right. I really don't care what the other elements are. So
as long as they
do what I need them to do,
they'll burn up.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. Finish what you're saying, because I love this.
Is fun. Yeah. Well, anybody can get. So when I would teach this, and people would say, "Well, who should I marry then? What element should I marry?" And I said, "Marry someone you love." But it's going to be easier for you if you understand and respect. So if you have a wind fire, I know a couple who, one's a wind fire and the other one's an earth water. Well, they were having all sorts of conflict until they realized, man, we've got the whole ball game. We've got the whole ball game here. If we can figure it out, we can grow anything, and we can keep things in motion.
And I agree with that so wholeheartedly. That's once I got over, I appreciate how God had put us together. My wife runs the house, and I just basically, and I don't say this in humor, but I just do what she tells me because it just works.
Right.
And I make suggestions.
Right.
And I'm very comfortable with her saying, "No, it's just not time for that yet." And just moving through it.
There's wisdom right there.
Well, it took a few years for that wisdom to go, but
hard to come by.
Yeah, before you, and I was doing parenting classes. One of the things that really helped me teach other people, and even with my 3 children, was the temperaments. And so I was really big, and each one of the temperaments, the sanguine, choleric, those classifications, which kind of overlap. Really helped me in parenting. And it was amazing as I did parenting classes, how I would tell the husbands to move over because you're about to get some elbows with this, and so
exactly.
I think it's just so critical what you're doing and just trying to help people realize how God made us, and there's no mess ups in how He did that,
Well, and I want to stop right here and say to our audience, if you're interested in the 4 elements, we have someone that's just gotten trained and certified to lead the workshop, and that is Dr. Pokey Stanford. And I know her. She is a fire wind. I will tell you what she is already. But she loves this work. I love it too, and we would love to help your group work through this, your organization, your leadership team, whatever it might be. So I'm going to throw that in there. Laurie Beth, just to give you an example of the elements, the earth in my life is Ann, as you know, and this whole podcast was supposed to be on priorities. Well, I take it down the element route, and all of a sudden Ann comes over with a big piece of paper with priorities written in big letters on it. She wants to keep us on task. And so that's a perfect example of why you need earths in your life.
Exactly.
But I think there is a correlation, because I've read the path several times. I've, of course, done the 4 elements. I think there's a correlation to priorities in terms of your element, because if you know your element, you're able then to better not set your priorities, which you do better set them, but you keep them focused more. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. This is so brilliant. And one of our dreams is to have a planning journal where, okay, just imagine this. It's just a quadrant. And so you have an earth in one quadrant, the fire in another, the water and the wind. Each one are a quadrant. Well, the priority list for a wind fire is going to be anything that's exciting, fun, can be done fast, and we get to see a score. So we're going to fill up those two quadrants with our priorities. What we're not going to pay attention to is anything that's really too much about emotions, people's feelings, stuff that we can't control, um, or the earth, which is boring. Who pays the rent? Boring. When's the lease due? Boring.
Boring, yes.
Boring. All those things.
Until the next month when they say the movers are here to move you, throw you out of your house. Not so boring. So
exactly. And then there's a lot of drama. We get to have the drama around what happened.
Yes, indeed.
Blame other people, right?
Indeed.
But so the planner would have a quadrant, and this is something that maybe we could design one together. It would be really fun. So for myself as a wind fire, I have to be intentional in my water quadrants and in my earth quadrants. So if I look at my and literally I'll say, my water, I've got to call so-and-so, check on so-and-so, someone's got a birthday, all these different things that are in my water quadrant. And then my earth quadrant is like, go to the dentist or, all these different things that are not fun or exciting. But, and typically your priorities are going to be in whatever elemental blend. That's where your strengths are. So that's where you want to take the action. But that's why you need a team that has the other elements. And also for a balance, you see so many people that have no work-life balance. Well, it's because their water quadrants are totally empty.
Yeah.
And earth there's no long-term planning, or maybe the long-term planning is about you get a fire earth, man, you've got a tank.
Yeah.
And they know the coordinates and they know how to get there.
Guys, I want to tell you about a project that we have been working on for a long time, and we are so excited that it is officially out in the world for you to get to be a part of. Yes. Shane, why don't you tell us a little bit about our newest book?
Well, it's part of a Life Along the Way series. Jesus was referred to as the Way, the first 200 years of the church, his life. And so how do you walk along the way with Jesus? What we've done is taken all four Gospels and the first chapter of Acts. We put them into chronological order, and they've come out into 360 devotionals. And so in 4 90-day devotionals, you can walk with Jesus every day in the same pattern and same that the Bible has it. And the first one is Jesus with Us. It's the first 90 days, talks about the beginning, the prophecies of his birth and the coming of the Lord. And then it talks about his birth and several years after that, and just helps you to feel like you are at the very beginning, truly at the start of the journey of Jesus, and what a powerful impact that can make in your life.
So you and I have been doing this
Yes.
for a year. We've been walking through 365 days with Jesus. And I think for myself personally, what's been so impactful about reading it in chronological order and reading it slowly, we're not skipping around on what we like about what Jesus says and what he doesn't, right? We're spending time in all of his words and getting to know him as a whole person. And so I think whether our listeners are have been walking with Jesus for a long time, or maybe are just wanting to get to know Jesus, this is a great devotional for them.
C.S. Lewis says if you're going to tell the story, you need to tell the whole story. And this is the whole story.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want y'all to get a copy of this book. We'll put the links in the show notes for you to be able to get a hold of it. It has been truly life transforming for me, and I want you to be a part of it as well. Join us on the journey.
Laurie Beth, let me ask you this, because for my example, where this really, because I first read this when I was at a church in Florida that was a very difficult place to be, and I just remember how all of a sudden I had this aha moment. I didn't understand why visiting, and I would visit numerous people a day, whether in the hospital or in their homes, I did not understand why I felt so tired versus the days that I would, literally do physical labor or write a sermon. And it's because
Right.
my water gift, I still had to exercise all four elements. I think that's important to say. But part of it is the reason you want people on your team is because you will run out of that element. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes. The example is fighter jets. How they fuel jets in the air, and in order to do that, the fuel tanker has to fly faster than it can comfortably fly, and the jet has to slow down
Wow.
to a speed that it cannot sustain. Neither one of those two can sustain that speed for very long
Yes. Wow.
in order to make the exchange, right? But once they make that exchange, then they're both free to go back to what they do best. So with a team member, and we've talked about this, I know, Shane, they want pastors to be everything.
Yeah.
Well, well, you might have a pastoral pastor who's really gifted in the water quadrant, but man, they want a fiery preacher. They want those
Yeah.
sermons
Oh,
to get
yes.
people up and out.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's a water fire combination is very rare.
How do you talk to them? And this might be helpful for people who are in this trying to prioritize where their energy and focus goes. How do you talk to then a church or to an organization about the fact that the elements lend to the certain things that can happen, and then also reducing the expectations on the elements that are not so prevalent? I'm sure you talk to businesses about this.
Sure. If you hire right and if everybody wants the same thing, that's the most important thing. Then it's how do we get there? And by having the priorities, the earth is going to say, well, it's decision making. It's also a decision making quadrant. I mean, and Shane, I think you know this, the elements go so deep.
Yes.
I mean, the application is just
Yeah.
unlimited. So let's look at a decision matrix. Same quadrant, the four elements. So the fire wants to make a decision. We're going to move the company to Memphis, and we're going to do it by next week. You either with us or against us, right?
Yes,
Get
that's
on board or
right.
get off.
Yes.
you know, and but a wise and enlightened fire still thinks that you probably need to Memphis. The move needs to be made, but you say, okay, Earth, I need your help. What are the Earth logistics around this? Waters, what are the water feelings around this? Wind is probably excited because any move is fun, and fire is all about we got to get there. That's where it's happening. Well, the water may say, well, I'm not someone on the team. I'm not going because I can't leave my mother. She's in a home here, or my kid is about to graduate. I'm not going to move. So you think, oh, well, then I just lost my COO.
Yeah,
Think
sure.
about that.
Yes.
And then the earth says, well, y'all can move, but we're on a commercial lease for the next 3 years. So who's going to pay for it?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing this and thinking, oh my gosh, the number of organizations that could, or families, churches,
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
that could benefit from taking the time to do this, setting their priorities then eventually, whether it's a family or a church or a business, setting their priorities becomes more of an outflow of what they already know about themselves and each other.
Yes, yes. And people want to be used in that sense. They want to be harnessed. And when you can recognize them as a leader and say, wow, that scouting report was unbelievable. We love it. Earth, Mavis, what's your take on this? And not put them in opposition.
Sure.
So that you become a facilitator of the best elemental knowledge in each quadrant.
Wow.
Then when you lay that out with the team, you've got buy-in because number one, they were asked.
Yeah.
And they were listened to.
It seems kind of trivial in the big picture, but it was huge for me. Here again, looking at the temperaments, but the elements do exactly the same thing. I would ask my wife the first few years of marriage, why aren't you happy? And she would say, I'm happy. I said, well, you just don't act happy. She said, no, I don't act goofy like you, but I'm happy. And she was melancholy in the temperaments and my sanguine. But one of the things that was, as I was reading about melancholies, one of the statements was, they do not like to be jollied. And it revolutionized my marriage. It really did, because I didn't feel, sanguines and us winds are kind of happy when everybody else is happy. And so realizing that it wasn't my job, that she expressed her joy in a different way from me, really set me free to be goofy and not feel like that when she wasn't, she was kind of not understanding me or appreciating me. So not just I think all of it's logical, but not so much in the accomplishing of tasks, but also in that relational aspect where you understand how God made people and it's for the completion of the body, not to cause the body to be separate. So it's so cool.
Laurie Beth, we only have a minute or so left. I was going to tell you, I want to bring you back at some point on the podcast, because just the other day I created we call them servant school minis, addressing the issue of when you have to face crisis or suffering or pain. And I used the 4 elements to break down how you approach those issues so that you know the ones you're going to be strong in, how to respond, and how to work, and where you need someone to come along who has that other element to help you in that situation. And it was just fascinating to me how easily it flowed out in terms of helping someone deal with crisis or suffering in their life, because you're wanting their strengths to be as present as possible. And so I just want to thank you, as someone who's quite proficient and professional in suffering and crisis. I just want to thank you for giving me the tools and the framework for being able to have that conversation all the way over to any other conversation that we need to have. Ronnie?
Absolutely. No, I think, I don't know how this affects, I know we don't have time to really discuss it, but it's interesting that Shane being that fire, that was a triple fire, whatever, something. But anyway, being a lot of fire, has to deal with more chronic illnesses than I've ever seen anybody have to deal with. And it would seem that God is teaching him in his strong leadership role how to deal with the rest of us who do maybe move a little slower because of the chronic things he has to deal with in his life. So, God just has a plan, doesn't he? It's amazing.
Always. Oh, Shane, your fire leadership, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for your drive, right? And your vision.
Well, and I thank you, Laurie Beth, for saying that. Pokey, my wife, will tell you that you are one of the people that I admire most. I love talking to you. I just think everything that you bring up is so brilliantly done. But I tell you, you've had a great impact on me personally, and just being able to approach the things in my life that I need to work on and do better. I'm low water, which means that relationships in times of high fire, they steam out. I don't focus on those. And I've actually, since I noticed that several years ago, have been trying to work much harder in the water aspect of life. And that's just one example. So thank you so much. It was great to have you with us.
All right. Thank you so much. Blessings to you.